Welcome to the Hometown Gym Podcast, the place where we teach parents and those new to fitness the best practices of physical health so that you can have the ability to run around and keep up with your kids and grandkids, and so that you can smile when you look at yourself in the mirror, and most importantly, that you live a pain-free, happy, and long life. All right, welcome back, guys, to the Hometown Gym Podcast. If you spent any ornate amount of time scrolling through the likes of Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, chances are you're going to stumble upon the next fad fitness guru who suggests getting in shape is simple. Work out 5 to 6 days a week, make sure you're in a caloric deficit, and use these specific supplements, and you're going to be golden. For you gym rats, this works for you. This actually works pretty well for me as well, but that's not always the case. If I think back to the time where my journey in fitness began, I started in the gym just a couple of times a week, and ultimately I had to figure this whole thing out. So today, Andrew and I, we aim to bridge the gap here for the newcomers in the gym. We're going to be talking about how often you should work out, how often we should go to the gym, how much cardio should we do, should I do weightlifting, and so on. All right. So for you triathletes, bodybuilders, wrestlers, football players, CrossFitters, we know you guys get the heck after it in the gym. Just know this is for the person considering the gym for the very first time or someone who just joined. The episode is not targeted for you advanced gym folk. And with that, let me welcome in my co-host, Andrew Doubek, doctor of physical therapy, disc golf phenom, disher extraordinaire, and just genuinely a good human being. Andrew, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing good, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. First topic that I want to go into, man, is actually just talking a little bit about your life, things that you're working on. This could be fitness, nutrition, something personal. Let me give you a couple examples. Back in June, my wife and I did a half marathon. I'm never going to do it again, but we did one. And that was something that fitness-wise we were working towards for 14 weeks. We had a whole program that was stipulated, and we were running kind of 3 to 4 times a week. Something else I'm working on in my personal life is doing this podcast and doing this twice a week, whether I'm talking to you, somebody else, or just doing a solo cast. And then with that, I'm also going to the gym 4 times a week, lifting something in each of those sessions. It's not always heavy, but I'm probably lifting something within there. And then that is purely so that I can continue to run circles around my kids, my nieces, and my nephews. And it's ultimately so that I can live happy, healthy life, hopefully to 100. We'll see what God has in store for me, man. But that in mind, what are you working on in life, man?
Yeah, so I'm working on actually more like rearranging my fitness goals is actually what I'm more interested in because I love spending time pushing weights, but kind of trying to balance like mobility. I'm actually trying to spend less time lifting weights and doing it more frequently, and then just getting like really consistent cardio in. And then definitely a big issue for me is working on my nutrition, the making sure that I can get away with some stuff now when my metabolism is pretty high, but I don't think I'll be able to do that forever, and it's probably not a good
Yeah.
idea anyway. So that's where I'm at right now.
When you say you want to lift less, do some more cardio, does anything come into mind when you think about what you want to do?
Well, so basically I right now will follow pretty predictable trends where depending on like what sports I'm doing at that given time, um, I'll either have an abundance of cardio or like I'll have a big dip in cardio. For example, during hockey season, I tend to get quite a bit. I'm probably playing 2, 3 times a week and then running 2, 3 times a week on top of that. But then when I dip into like spring, fall time, I'll kind of hit a rut where I'll just do a lot of lifting.
Is
And
it
then
is that when
and
disc
then
golf season is?
yeah.
We we
Well,
just
so
we
disc
just
golf
start
season.
getting the transverse movement going within there, right?
Yeah, so disc golf season's year round for me. We disc through the winter too, so we're
Yeah.
kind of crazy, but yeah. So that's kind of like evening out those smoothing out those bumps in my year is kind of what I'm up to right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it, man. Favorite piece of conditioning or cardio to do?
I like sports. Let's be honest, I hate cardio. Um, so like if I can trick myself into it either playing hockey or soccer. Um, that's going to be my go-to, like where running, I get pretty bored after an hour or so.
Dude,
Like
preach.
I can play 2-3 hours of soccer or hockey. So that's really my go-to if I can.
Yeah, and love this. We're going to touch on this topic a little later, but let's just jump into it right now because that's a great point. And I think when a lot of people think about cardio, like I don't know why, the treadmill just like immediately comes to my mind. I don't hate the treadmill, but I also
Hmm.
don't think you have to spend your entire cardio session just, like looking at a TV, monotonously running on the treadmill with nothing else to do. And one of the things I did write down is you could do sports. Pickleball is a massive fad in the United States right now.
Oh yeah.
We're fortunate enough that my in-laws they have a court in the backyard, so we play every single weekend we go out there. But gosh, even going out there and playing like 21 against my wife or my nieces have this game where we play this game called Bad Guy. All it is Brandon runs away from the nieces until they catch him and they just beat the crap out of me. So,
Yeah. You
but
deserve it.
lots
Yeah.
of conditioning. It's literally just starting and stopping sprinting for about an hour, which is a ton of fun. But going back to your point, just doing sports or whatever you enjoy in a recreational way is awesome. And I would love to do more of that personally. Pickleball is something kind of on that front. I'm not going to say it's as intense as doing hockey or maybe playing soccer along those lines. But that's a really enjoyable way to go out there, participate with other people, get into fitness with other people in a way that's not quite as monotonous as jumping on the treadmill or a rower, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that with us. And that's also just a great segue into what we're going to be talking about today, which is really how much time should the average adult spend within the gym? And I want to break that down between cardio, which is kind of what we're talking about, and also strength training. And kind of today, we're going over this from the framework of the World Health Organization. We read a great article on that, which I think provides a great framework base to do that. But we want to extrapolate upon that a little bit more and kind of take this in. And at least where I'm going with this, Andrew, their age demographic was like 18 to 64. I'm probably going to go a little bit more specific and go like 45 to 60 and maybe even go a little bit outside of the demographic and just say, again, those new to the gym. And I know for a lot of the
Hmm.
listeners in this podcast are particularly parents. So by the end of this podcast, we will tell you how many days a week that you should work out on average, how many minutes you spend on each session, when you should do strength training, or if you should do strength training in the beginning, our ratio to cardio to strength training, how many days of each should you do. And then Andrew and I will give you some sample programming of how you could kind of line up your week for some ideas on that. Andrew, let's kick it off with just, how many measurable minutes, days, time should be spent exercising per week for somebody who's brand new to the gym? What are your thoughts there?
Well, and I get this question a ton in my clinic.
I
So
believe it.
I'll see this a lot where, a question that I always ask is how active are you at home? Like give me a look at your weekly activity or exercise, because a lot of times when people hear exercise that they automatically go to, no, I'm not going an hour a week in the gym 6 days a week. And I'm
Or like
like,
an
no,
hour a
just
day, with some of the stuff that, I see out there. And I know people are trying to help people and all that, but
yeah.
I think to suggest where somebody's like coming off the couch cold and then you're just like, yeah, hey, an hour a day, you should just jump in and it's good for you. I agree, but in time, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, continue there, sir.
Yeah, so I'll ask people like, what does that look like to you? And a lot of times I'll get someone who's like, oh yeah, I'm real active. I'm like, okay, what's that look like? And they're like, well, I do my laundry and I get my
Yeah.
food from the fridge and I go to the bathroom. And so then I kind of try and get a little bit more specific. And the guidelines from the World Health Organization are awesome. They just updated them in 2020 and they almost doubled their cardio recommendations.
But
So
we'll
right
we'll
now,
we'll link that in the episode below there, guys, if you guys want to check that out. But we'll provide you guys the information here as well.
yeah, I would highly recommend checking it out, because some of the things we're going to say is sounds kind of crazy because they're right now they're recommending 150 to 300 minutes of moderate cardio a week, or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous cardio a week, and that sounds like a lot. What is that? Sometimes that boils down to like 30 minutes to an hour, 5 days a week. Like that sounds like a lot. And it feels like a lot. And before I get reamed out by someone, like, is it a good idea to start at that point? I would say absolutely not. I would say I don't believe that it's a good idea to start at the minimum recommendations. If you're exercising 0 hours a week right now, um, my recommendation is something is always better than nothing.
Love
And
that
maybe,
saying. Yeah, I love that, Andrew. I think even with somebody who's coming in and we get this question all the time too, like within the gym, where
Mhm.
it's like, hey, how many times do I need to, I don't know, lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever it's going to be? And that's really hard to quantify, right? But I mean, one time a week of vigorous exercise is a lot better than zero.
Yes, yeah. And so like when I'm talking to someone, basically my first question is, do you find that this is valuable? And even though there's a ton of research showing it's valuable, I would say the majority of people think that exercise is uh important. Um, what you want to ask them is like, how much time would you be willing to put towards this? And then, okay, let's take that time that you're willing to start and let's divvy that up and see how we can make that as effective as possible. So if
Uh,
that's 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week, that's a great start, I think. Um, that's sometimes I will take, I'm lucky enough where I've had relationships with people where it's taken me 3 years to get from zero exercise to maybe probably one of my highlight patients. I have someone who now works out an hour a day, 5 days a week, but it
it's
took us
amazing.
4 years to get there. And he just has, abnormal grit, but that can happen. So can you commit to 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week? That's a great start right there, I think.
Yeah, I love where you're going with all that. And that 5, 6 days a week too is like kind of the pinnacle, right? And really
Mhm.
developing kind of good, I'm going to say good habits kind of over time, but I don't know, maybe that's not your thing too. Like
Right.
one of the greatest mistakes I made as a young 25, 26, 27-year old personal trainer and manager of a gym was just kind of assuming that like everybody has time for
Hmm.
that stuff. And our demographic largely was families, particularly women over the age of 40, probably up till 60. We had some 70-year-olds in there too. And until I became a parent, I did not understand how busy and how difficult that can be actually to kind of make things work and also spend time with your kids, right? I had no idea what that was like as a single man or even in the early stages of my relationship with my now wife. Um, and just even carving out like the 10 minutes, I know that can be difficult sometimes. Like I have to get up
Hmm.
at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, and I do not love that, right? I would much rather go like take a break at work during the day, go jump into the gym for an hour, kind of get away from work for a little bit, but my calendar doesn't allow me to be able to do that. And the only time I get to spend with my son is in the evening time when I come home from work, and it's between the hours like 5 to 7. That's like the most valuable time of my day just to sit there with my entire family. So there's no chance I'm working out during that time. And then it's like 7 o'clock, and it's also like my time with my wife. So that's extremely difficult. So I would say also when you find the 10 minutes a day, the importance of just kind of scheduling that time. If you
Hmm.
live by a calendar, just picking out the days where you're going to do that, also just incredibly important. Just kind of a commitment to yourself. And it's just a really good habit to be able to get into. I'm going to do 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week. I'm going to do that, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, so I can get it in on the weekends. Then I'll pick one day during the week. I love where we're going with that, Andrew. So it varies, guys, is kind of I think the answer here, Andrew, right? Is how
Hmm.
much could you commit to kind of during the week? Andrew said clients here that has started with as little as 10 minutes. I've written programs where we're doing 2 times a week and it's in and out of those sessions in 45 minutes, including warm-ups, cool downs, mobility sessions, your conditioning piece. If there's an application of strength, you're going to be done. Um, we kind of answered this as well, but kind of going back to this, is there a set time that we should spend kind of per workout when we figure that out?
So I would say again, like the recommendations are going like, 30 to 45 minutes, but really that does not have to be that way. So, um, I work my primary group that I work with are people who are retired and they haven't worked out in quite a long time. So
Yeah.
there's no reason you can't split that up. So like I have people who they like walking in the morning and then they'll have a bike ride with their husband or wife after dinner too. So you just did two 15-minute exercises and that adds up to pretty close to what your recommended exercise for that day is. So I would say I wouldn't say there's any golden rule to like amount of time during any given workout. I will say on my end, I prefer I actually prefer toning down the amount of time if I had to choose longer or shorter. Um, I actually encourage a lot of the people that I work with, you can if you're exercising, I like to focus. Just I know we're going to talk a little bit about intensity, but if you can keep that intensity up rather than like, dragging your exercise out to, I'm gonna poke fun at my dad a little bit. He's notorious for doing 3-hour workouts where he's also folding laundry and messing with the cat. So I'm not messing with him at all because he's a real fit guy, but I personally like if I can boil my workouts down a little more so I can get a little more intense and get my heart rate up a little bit more during those routines.
Yeah, and then for those of you when we say intensity and you're like, what does that mean? I'm going to say rate of perceived exertion, Andrew, or the rate at which your heart rate is beating. The higher it is, the more intense the workout's going to be. Does that sound about right to you? And what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I absolutely agree. So in those guidelines they talk about moderate or vigorous exercise. For me that's huge because there's some real life implication to that. Higher intensity exercises that get your heart rate up to a certain percentage actually releases certain neurotransmitters into your brain, and that is huge for people with Parkinson's, with stroke, or if you're trying to look for the one of the gold standards right now for cognitive decline is getting your heart rate up to that certain
That's
amount.
wild. I would
Yep,
never ever guess that
yep,
those were like correlated or related in any way. That is wild that that's related. That's really cool.
yeah, yeah. So like you were saying, rate of perceived exertion and heart rate. So gold standard, well, gold standard is probably like a VO2 max. I'm not heading into a lab to do that. There's tons of like commercially available heart rate monitors right now. Those are awesome. I've got Garmin. Tons of people have Fitbits. You can get like a pulse ox fairly cheap at any CVS or Walgreens. Um, and then if you are just not interested in that, so like it's like, look, I'm just looking to get into this. You guys are crazy. I'm not buying a heart monitor. That's fine. I use what's called a Borg. So basically you
I
can,
love the visual aid here. This is fantastic. If you guys are on audio, Andrew is currently holding up a graph of rate of perceived exertion, RPE. Love it. Andrew, explain to us what we're looking at here.
yeah. So I use the original for clinical care. So basically it's a weird scale. It goes from 6 to 20. That has to do with those numbers actually correlate to percentage of heart rate. And so that's why it goes, people are like, why does it start at 6? That's crazy. And it's like, well, yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it matches up to like a relative heart rate. Um, when I'm doing kind of more community programming, some people find like a 1 to 10 a little easier to use. And basically what it does is it kind of adds a little description there. So I'll like say The 9 is very light. It'll say comfortable and breathing harder. And then maybe 17, very hard. So someone can keep a fast pace for a shorter period of time. So that I find is really useful. If you don't have a heart rate monitor, really great substitute. Um, and then let's say I still have people, even at that point, that they still are just like, look, I'm still not going to do that. I'm not going to haul that around with me when I'm taking a bike ride. Just not going to happen.
Hey, listeners, first, thanks so much for listening to the show. A quick reminder here, if you're new to the gym or you're not sure what to do or how to start, navigate over to hometowngym.net. This is our website where we have fitness programs for beginners, where you can start with a sample class at no cost to you with support 7 days per week. In addition to that, we have even more free content through the website over there. Again, that's hometowngym.net. Thanks so much, and we're back to our show.
My typical advice is like the talking test. So let's say if you're looking for that ideal heart rate, which is between 70 and 80% of your heart rate max. So if you're looking for that, like a really, really simple version is if someone asks you a question, you can respond in a sentence and not a paragraph. I think is a really easy way to do that. You're not talking between breaths, so you're not putting yourself in a dangerous place, but at the same point you're not talking as much as I am, which is good.
Yeah, that's really good from an intuitive point, right? And I boil this down within programming to kind of percentages, right? 90% effort, 50 to 70% effort, things of that nature. So for example, I was doing some intervals over the weekend. So it was like I had 3 rounds of like 2 exercises and then 5 minutes of rest and three rounds of 2 other exercises. And they were short and they were designed to be short, which means intensity was really high. So we're talking like not 100%, but probably like 85 to 90%. Like I was going to be going really fast to a point where it's like I couldn't say much afterwards, right? And
Mhm,
when I finished
mhm.
the workout, and that was the whole intent of the workout was to go fast, rest, and then go fast again. And then afterwards, when I'm talking to my wife, that's exactly what happened, right? So I could get a sentence out, and it was like,
Mhm.
and then we continued. So love that from the intuitive perspective there, Andrew. That's great. Any other thoughts there on gosh, intensity, heart rate, anything of that nature?
So, one thing again that I think is really easy. So let's say, if you do want to be really, really vigilant on the end of like monitoring vitals. So let's say, again, kind of like what I see on a daily basis. So let's say someone's got congestive heart failure and they're like, you know, is it safe for me to get to that intensity? And they're just kind of like, I really do want to measure my heart rate, and see where that is. There's a couple different ways you can do that. So again, like let's say the Fitbits are really awesome. A lot of those have their own like programs built in to see what that aerobic zone is. I know my Garmin does. But you can do it cheap and easy. So if you get a pulse oximeter, so it just kind of slips on your finger.
And again,
There's a
guys, we'll
couple,
we'll link this stuff in there so that you guys can go check that stuff out.
yeah, yeah. There's I want to say someone's gonna skewer me on this, but I think it's the Kardashev equation, like that to
Okay.
measure um maximum heart rate.
Couldn't tell you
Um,
what it is. I read it in a book once upon a time. It might be that, but I couldn't tell you at this point.
yep, yep. Some people say like 220 plus or minus your age.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Um, I know that's being disputed right now a little bit because when they're saying when you get up into the higher age ranges, they're actually saying it's not high enough, and then the lower age range, your max heart rate is pretty stinking high when you use that equation.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm lazy. I don't like to do the equation. I got a free app on my phone. It's called Heart Rate Zone, but I'm sure there's 20 other free apps on your phone. That's real easy. I just plug in. What I'll do is I'll take someone's resting heart rate the first day they can't come in when they're kind of chill in the waiting room. I'll grab my phone right in front of them, plug in their age, plug in their resting heart rate, bam, 70, 80% of their heart rate max. I'll keep it in their file, give it to them. They can use that real easy, real cheap and easy.
Yeah, there's several options for you guys right there, right? We got the intuitive way. That's also how I am. I've got heart rate monitors. For those of you who have Apple Watches, there's a heart rate monitor attached to that underneath the activity app that you can use. I just don't like paying attention to it that much. I kind of want to I honestly want to let my mind wander because it's kind of therapeutic for me to go and work out, always has been. And so I just want to go, okay, the intent of this workout is to go faster. Hey, is to have a constant kind of rate of pace the entire duration of the workout, and then just go from there. But there's a ton of options there, guys. There's free options for heart rate monitors. There's the intuitive one where you don't need to do anything. And if you really want to nerd out and jump in there and figure out your heart rate and match that up with zone training, you can do that as well. Andrew, I love that. Let's move on and pick apart kind of what cardio means, right? We've talked about jumping on the treadmill. We've talked about kind of going out there playing sports. Let me jump in here as well. And I love that we're coming at this from so many like variations of ways that we can go and do conditioning or just cardiovascular exercises. And there's so many plethora of things. It's not as simple as like, I need to go sit on the treadmill for 45 minutes or a bike and just do a single modality related movement monotonously for 40 minutes, right? So we do a lot of cross training with the stuff that I design and the stuff that I've done in the past, right? So we're doing a combination of some monostructural related movement, if that's going to be, it could be running, could be biking, could be rowing, with a lot of calisthenic related stuff, right? So it'll be push-ups, burpees, air squats, and we'll do some combination of that to do a workout, which in and of itself is going to be your conditioning piece, cardiovascular exercise. It's going to raise your heart rate. And it's kind of a fun way to be able to do that in a way where it's going to change every single day. It's not going to be the same thing. It's just jumping on the treadmill for 45 minutes or going out for your 5-mile run, kind of so on and so forth. Andrew, what's some other stuff that you guys use to do cardio outside of just hopping on a machine?
I mean, on the first side, I'm just going to agree with you that for a lot of people like that you know cross training or like you'll see high intensity interval training
Oh, yeah.
is cardio for a lot of people. So, for a lot of the people that I work with, they're so deconditioned that like doing five standing out of their chair 5 times in a row is going to get their heart rate that high.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, do I have to walk? Do I have to run? Not really, not necessarily. So one of the cardio days that I do every day is I do some interval training where I have picked, you know, 4 or 5 exercises that are I struggle with. So for example, I've got a known labral tear in my hip and in my shoulder. So I have some hip weakness and I have some rotator cuff weakness. And for me, I'm ripping those exercises out for a minute at a time, and then I'm moving on to the next one, and that gets my heart rate up. And so I'm doing my strength and my cardio in the same workout, which is a nice way to kill 2 birds with one stone. But yeah, that could look like walking, swimming, biking, pickleball. It could look like, I know in the Scandinavian countries there's a sport called Nordic walking. I don't know if you ever heard of that,
What
but
is Nordic walking?
so you'll see a lot of people like walking with walking sticks.
Okay.
And so that's it sounds kind of interesting, but they've actually done some decent research on it, showing that you get higher glute activation, higher core activation,
I need that in my
better,
life. Dang.
better, better shoulder engagement, improved postural muscles. Um, so like on a low end, that's really awesome because if I can replace a walker with those walking sticks, and on a high end, they've got you should everyone should YouTube it. There's some people cooking like they've got this like snatch and grab technique where they basically let go of the stick, hold on to the strap, and propel themselves forward. It's kind of intense, like it's kind of hard. It's so there are tons of options.
We will link that below. We're gonna have a lot of really good links here to show people for some extra and free content within here. Love that, guys. If you guys got questions about other cardio related methods, you guys can reply to any of the social medias that's going to be on here. You guys can send us an email at info@hometownGym.com. .net. Andrew, the next piece to this is this strength training piece. This, I guess the first part is, what are your feelings on somebody jumping kind of right into what is strength training to you? When I say that, what comes to mind?
So in my job, I tend to overly complicate it just because I'm a nerd and I love it.
Bring it on,
Through,
dude. Bring it on. That's what we're here for. Let's dive into the weeds.
but like if we're talking like what's gonna do like bang for my buck. So let's say, like you said, at some point I will not have the time I do now to dump into working out. I at some point I will not get the amount of time that I am currently enjoying. So I'm gonna have to prioritize like what am I gonna want to prioritize for me. And so what I'm thinking is, you'll hear this term like every major muscle group, and people will be like, well, what does that mean? Like for someone who's no, I don't even know what an anatomy class looks like what does that mean to do major muscle group? So what I'm thinking is mostly like proximal muscle group, so like the closest to the spine. So I'm going to prioritize glute max, which is your butt cheek muscle, your glute med, which is your lateral hip muscle, which keeps you stable in space. I'm probably going to prioritize my quads because that's going to help me safely get up and down out of the chair, get up and down stairs. I want to prioritize my shoulder muscles, in particular, the muscles between my shoulder blade, which keeps me in good posture. And then probably my rotator cuff would be my big go-to. So those muscles that stabilize your shoulder joint and kind of open up your shoulders. So like if I were gonna prioritize, if I had 10 minutes to work out and that's what I wanted to work on, those would probably be like the five muscles I would shoot for first.
Love that. Are we doing resistance training in those? Are we just moving our body through space to begin? Where do you start people?
So you can do anything. So I go back to that question before, like I'll kind of get people's read on like what does that look like to you? What do you want to do? Because some people are like, I don't have any exercise equipment at all at home, and I don't intend on getting any. I'm like, that's great. Or sometimes I'll get people who like, let's say, I'll get some gentlemen who played high school football and haven't been active since then. And they're like, you know what? I really like the idea of pushing weight around. And I'll say, okay, let's get back to that. Or some people are like, you know what? I had an old therapist give me a bunch of TheraBand. Can we make that work? So I really don't think there's a terribly wrong answer as far as like where do we get started. And I just kind of look at like what are you interested in? My start typically is like I don't have I have more people than less that don't have weights or TheraBand. So like more
Same.
people
Yeah.
than not don't have equipment. There's a ton of good body weight exercises. So like, you and I talked about this a little bit, like an air squat, it's great for the quads, a bridge or butt lift, great for the glutes, or like a sideline hip lift. Um, like those are all really good starts. And that's kind of where I go to unless people are already have something in mind, like, yeah, I want to go to the gym, or yeah, I've got these bands at home.
Yeah. And I would just say that, maybe the caveat to that is like for the squat, for example, when I think about that and moving people through a correct range of motion, I guess that's maybe the one, maybe like the deadlift too, to where I would focus on movement patterns first, then add load, right? So we would want to be able to
Hmm.
get
Hmm.
the butt into a position where it's going to be below the knees, or at least at the knees,
Hmm.
before I would want to add some semblance of load to that, at least
Hmm.
in that capacity. Kind of the same thing for the deadlift, where I'm trying to bend over and again get my shoulders and my hips aligned to the correct position before I'm going to yank a bunch of weight off the ground. Um, I love that, man. I think that's fantastic. I agree with you on pretty much everything that you just said in regards to that. And I think just moving your body for a lot of that is really good. But I like light weights, machines, all of that stuff as well. Hey everyone, quick break from the show. Our mission is to help as many people as possible increase their happiness and confidence when it comes to their physical appearance. By way of doing that, that also creates an awesome byproduct of bettering their physical health, which is going to increase their longevity as well. If you could take about 20 seconds, click the share button, that's the little up arrow in the podcast platform, and share this episode on your Facebook or Instagram page. That would allow us more opportunity to change someone's life. While it means the world to us, more importantly, it'll mean even more to the viewer who just happens to stumble upon your post or story. Thanks so much. Let's get back to the show. How much cardio to strength should we be doing kind of on a weekly basis, Andrew? Is there a perfect ratio for that? What do you think?
I would say again, so I would open that up in two different directions. So like if you're looking based off of purely the recommendations, there's a lot more recommended cardio. Um, so like a lot of suggestions I'm seeing are like at least 3 to 5 days a week, and they're saying like maybe 2 days of strength training. That being said, um, typically when I see people, there's some sort of dysfunction as to why they're struggling to get that cardio in the first place. So I would say in some instances, I have to put in a little legwork first before we can get to that point. So for example, like if I've got someone coming in really, really common scenario with lower back pain, and they try to do some walking, but unfortunately the musculature of their hips will not support that program, then I have to put in a little legwork first before we can get there. So then, what that kind of boils down to is maybe we have to do some butt cheek and hip strengthening before we can get to the minimum recommended cardio. So even though I would say it tends to be for a general population a little more skewed towards the cardio,
Yeah.
sometimes there are limitations to that. So I can't give really a perfect answer for everyone, unfortunately.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And the way that I've kind of at least written out some sample programming here was very similar. Like conditioning, getting the heart rate raised is kind of prioritized more so than making sure we're pushing maximum load or moving our body weight as much as possible. Both are really important. And I think both are really important, especially as we age, for longevity, to make sure that we're going to live as functional and a happy life as possible. But a lot of this varies. So, I mean, if you guys got questions on any of this stuff, please, send it our way. We'll do our best to help out in whatever capacity that we can for those questions. The next thing I'd love to go into, Andrew, is just some sample kind of workout routines for somebody that's going to be doing something. Let's maybe just put like 2 days a week just to kind of start from there. What thoughts are kind of coming off the top of your head for kicking? I'm going to say somebody. Generally, I know it varies based upon the individual, but in general, for the general population, if someone's coming to you first time that they're going to be in the gym to just lengthen their life, improve their quality of life, where would you have them start?
Honestly, maybe it's my bias, like my personal bias, but I really like interval training. I
Yeah,
think you can cover a ton of ground. You can get like if I'm getting someone brand new and people just don't have time, it's like let's get as much done as we can in as short amount of time as possible. I think that's a great place to start. And like if I'm having a hurt, like if I'm going to a conference or something like that and I just don't have time that week, that's where I'm going. So again, all I do is I take I'm very cheap. I'm sorry everyone out there, but I get a free app. I think I just went on the app store and got an interval timer,
nothing
and
wrong with free apps, man. That's okay.
and I set it for a minute, and I'm gonna pick the exercises that I really struggle with. So let's say one of my favorites just starting is all alternate upper and lower body exercises. So let's just say, for example, I'm gonna do a little bit of like a goblet squat, and then I'm gonna do a push up, and then I'm gonna do a lunge, and then I'm gonna do a row. And so maybe I'll pick like 4 to 6 exercises, do them for a minute each. I've already got that written out, so I'm not messing around when I'm working out trying to decide what I'm going to do next. I have a whiteboard, I've got it all written down. When I was college, I just had a piece of paper that I would use,
Yeah.
and I'll go as hard as I can for a minute, take a 15-second break to make sure I can get my heart rate and respiratory regulated, and then go on to the next one. And then if I've got time, so maybe, maybe that takes me, 10, 15 minutes. And then if I've got time, I'll take a 2-minute rest break, and then I'll do another one. And I think honestly that works really well for people. So like if people out there know, like let's say someone's got a past history with rotator cuff injury and maybe lower back pain. So you want to prioritize, maybe we're going to do some butt lifts for a minute, and then maybe I'm going to roll over on my side and I'm going to do sideline shoulder rotation, and then I'm going to roll back and I'm going to do a leg lift, and then I'm going to do kind of pushing my shoulder blades back into the table and getting those postural muscles kicking. That would be a real easy, let's say like 10-minute workout. Really fast, really easy. You can still get your heart rate up while you're doing your major muscle group. So that I tend to go for that, but it's just not for everyone, I suppose.
I think that's a wonderful place to start, man. And I love that you're targeting the stuff that you struggle with or need to work on. If I was going to write this for Brandon, it would be, this is kind of how I wrote it, was 2 rounds. Okay. 1 minute for each movement. Glute bridges. My posterior chain is weak and it is not good. Sit-ups, my core, right? So I've got a 6-pack of abs. Great. You would be blown away by how pathetic I am. Anything in the core. It's disgusting. Just neglected it. Never, ever did any sort of core musculature related movements kind of until I found CrossFit. We'll tell that story at a different time. And still to this day, it's a weakness. So that's what I wrote down. Single leg RDLs, kind of getting more into the balance and posterior
Nice, I
chain
like that.
movements, and then burpees, which I think is a global movement. One of my, I'm not going to say favorites. I just think it's one of the most beneficial things that we can do. A little bit of everything from the upper body push to using the lower body, and then giving a little bit of a plyometric with a jump at the end. That would give us, if we did 3 rounds of that, that's 14 minutes total, 12 minutes of total movement with a minute rest following everything, which I think would be a really, really good place to start. Anything else to add there? I think that's awesome, Andrew.
Yeah, no. So I guess the only thing I would add to that is if um if you don't know where to start and you want to start like scanning for exercises, or like want to modify something. So let's say, for example, people love working out together. It's awesome. You can be accountable to each other. But let's say your workout partner's been doing it for a while. Don't be afraid to like modify what they're doing. So for example, like let's say if I were to go work out with you right now, I have some suspicions that I would get I would get my ego handed to me, which is okay.
Unless we're
But
doing
let's say,
sit-ups, man, then I would have to check my ego,
okay.
and I would have to do something and modify something to be able to do that. I love that you're bringing up this part. Keep going, or this part. Keep going with this thought, Andrew.
Yeah, so let's say so for me what's going to break down, I can tell you right now, with my hip pain, I can't do a really fast ground transfer. So like let's say me keeping up with you for burpees, one really really easy modification is if I take a chair, I can get down onto my hands off the chair and still get that jump maneuver. I can still get my legs back without putting a ton of torque on my hip. So I can still do that movement. So I guess I would say there is a modification for every single exercise. Don't be afraid if you want to work out with your buddy or your husband or your wife. but they've been doing it for a while, don't be afraid to take that movement and break it up. So like another really easy example is a ton of people are like, I can't do push up.
Yeah.
And it's you can modify that. Get onto your knees or against a wall or against a couch. I really like that one. So you can do a push up off a couch. So you're still getting pretty good activation of the chest. So don't be afraid to try out a more difficult workout, but just modify it to where you feel comfortable.
The modifications is huge, right? And just having some humility and kind of checking your ego to be able to do that. It's one of the first things that man, when I first started in the gym, we'll tell this story one day. I was just really, really skinny, which I'm sure a bunch of people rolling their eyes and be like, oh, who's this, mother lover who's talking about how skinny he was. But I was 6 feet tall. I was like 135 pounds, dripping wet until I was college. I was a really small guy. So when I would go into the gym and you see these big, muscular, ripped dudes kind of walking around, I'd just be embarrassed to go like lift next to them, not really know what I'm doing, or just not be able to lift all that much weight, right? And that's a modification. Is somebody who's benching 135 pounds, I'm just benching the barbell or doing a push-up. That's a modification. So you're starting where you're gonna begin for your fitness journey, and everyone's got a different place where they do that. When we modify something, we're decreasing the range of motion, like Andrew was saying with the push-up. Just giving it a little bit of an incline is going to make that world of difference, to be able to perform that movement. And just lightening load, which we're not talking a lot about here, but Andrew, I love that you touched base on that. Getting into kind of my sample workout routine, I added kind of a bit of strength to that. What I wrote down here was 3 sets of max incline push-ups. So that was where you would use the couch or you would use a chair and actually lift yourself up off the ground. Push-ups, I think, are one of the most underrated, difficult movements to be able to do. And elevating those a little bit makes it a lot easier. 2 minutes of rest in between each set. Okay, after that, we're going to rest at least 5 minutes, and then we're going to go into a short conditioning piece. That conditioning piece is only supposed to take 4 to 7 minutes or so. Okay, kind of a range there, which means it's going to be kind of quick. The intensity is going to be a little bit higher, and it's going to be something at about, I'm going to say 90% effort or so. It's a rep scheme of 20, 15, 10, 5 of air squats and single leg V-up. So lower body push with a little bit of a core exercise. Okay. You do 20 air squats, 20 single leg V-ups, 15 air squats, 15 single leg V-ups, all the way down to 5. And 90% intensity for somebody who's just starting. Gosh, that might even be just being able to continue to move throughout the duration of the workout, but slowly, or heck, even taking a couple of breaks in there. It's going to vary for every individual that's going to be coming in there. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I guess I would say is don't feel afraid. This was probably one of my bigger things is I always would have a scheme going into the gym or into I started working out in a gym class in high school, and I had a lot of friends that liked working out, and I always kind of had this idea that you had to make it through the workout. And one of the things that I realized is that idea was stopping me from working out. So I am actually, and I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I'm not afraid of starting a workout and ditching it partway through.
Dude,
Um, just because like if I heard this in a book once, and I think it's great. It's like anything worth doing is worth doing half-assed. So again, that like anything's better than nothing. If you get halfway through a workout, that's half more of a workout than you would have done if you hadn't done one. So like if you like you were saying, if someone starts that workout and they get a quarter through, that's a quarter of a workout. That's a good job. Like I'm saying like, don't be upset you didn't make it through that whole workout. I'm saying celebrate the fact that you got a quarter of a workout done and you should feel good about that.
hey team, we hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick break and ask that wherever you're watching or listening to the show, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, The way that this show will reach more people searching for content on the platform is if we have more reviews. Our mission at Hometown Gym is to help parents and people improve their physical and mental health through fitness, so that they can live an awesome, pain-free, and happy life. And an easy way for us to help reach more people is if you could actually scroll down to the review section, give us a 5-star review, and maybe share a little blurb about how you've enjoyed the show or which piece of content has had an impact on your life. From the bottom of our hearts, and the future listener who reads your message and starts to take action in their life, we thank you very, very much. Let's get back to the show. We'll get into this too, as each workout relatively should have a purpose. Lots of times there's a specific design as to how long that workout should take. And if we have I'm going to say a task-oriented workout, so I just mentioned one, that's where you're trying to accomplish something. It's 20, 15, 10, 5, air squats, single leg V-ups. There's not a dedicated time where it's like, hey, we're just going to do this for 15 minutes. It's, hey, to accomplish the workout, you need to do all this stuff, then you're done. And very specifically, I'm like, hey, this should take 4 to 7 minutes. I would say if it's longer than 7 minutes, we just need to adjust something. Maybe we should do a rep scheme of like 12, 9, 6, 3, or somewhere along those lines. So Andrew, again, this is why we have you on the show, man, just filled with knowledge and just dropping good knowledge bombs on us all over the place, which is great. So let me say this as a caveat here, guys. We're fans of anything that's going to get someone off the couch. All right. Moving better to improve their life and their happiness. So if it's Zumba, Andrew, hey, good for you. Beer league hockey or softball, we're big fans. Hot yoga, hiking, whatever it's going to be. We started this podcast to help people. And our whole goal here is to increase longevity for folks, ultimately increase their happiness so they can live a kick-ass life well into their 90s, or heck, maybe even 100. Andrew, that's all I got, man. Closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I guess one more real useful tool is if this is dipping a little bit further away from my knowledge base, but like action plans are great too. So you can look up online, just Google action plan. And if you really want to make kind of an accountability tool to yourself, just write down your goals. I know that's part of the program, and just look for what you want in life, and anything's better than nothing.
Love it, man. I'm gonna leave it on that, guys. We know you're busy. We know you guys have kids, other family members. The time that you're dedicating to being able to listen to this to better yourself, we really appreciate it. Thanks for dropping in at Hometown Gym. Andrew, you're the man. Thanks for joining me, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brandon.